Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Fairy Tale. Get a Bigmom template at the start. Chapter 11 Create Homies. Naked Man Pervert. Looking at the guild crest on the inside of his forearm, Luo Zhen couldn't help but smile. A sense of belonging spontaneously emerged in my heart. Because Luo Zhen and Urza have just arrived and they don't have their own residence in Magnolia yet. Ma Karloff also left 2 dormitories for the two. Because most of the guild's mages have their own place to live, the guild's dormitory has been vacant for a long time. Everywhere has been covered in dust. After tidying up his dormitory, Luo Zhen lay on the single bed with his hands behind his head. Open the virtual panel of the system. By the time he met Carlos the horse, Bigmom's template progress had already increased to 25%. After arriving at the guild, I met many members of the guild. It directly increased the progress to 85%. Just looking at it can completely reproduce the strength template of Bigmom. Lying on the bed, Luo Zhen received all the rewards excitedly. With a flood of memories flooding Luo Zhen's mind. 3-color domineering is enhanced. The ability of Soul Fruit also appeared in Luo Zhen's mind. With the receipt of the rewards, the use and development of the Soul Fruit was completely engraved in Luo Zhen's mind. Luo Zhen opened his eyes, and a faint light flashed in his eyes. Waving his arms lightly in the air, a faint blue light emerged from between Luo Zhen's palms. This is the soul that Luo Zhen extracted from his body. In the original book, Bigmom also used his own soul to create 3 special homies. Prometheus was created by the soul blessing on the flame. Zeus created by the soul blessing above the thundercloud. Napoleon was created with the blessing of the soul on the sharp blade. These 3 special homies are powerful and have been guarding Bigmom's side. Now that he possesses the ability of Soul Fruit, Luo Zhen naturally wants to create his own homies. Looking around in this empty dormitory, there is only a single bed, a wardrobe, and a simple desk. Luo Zhen had no choice but to take his soul back into his body and wait for the opportunity to use it again. Bigmom's swordsmanship is also very strong, and these rewards have almost accommodated all of Bigmom's abilities. There are 3 more opportunities for rewards in the future. Luo Zhen is a little unexpected. What else will come next? Luo Zhen's spirit was a little exhausted due to traveling overnight for several days and fighting with Mirajan for a while today. After a while, he lay on the bed and fell asleep. Under the darkness of night, Urza in the dormitory next door opened his eyes and raised his arms to look at the coat of arms of Black's fairy tale on the inside of his forearm, with a happy smile on his face. Turning his head and glanced at the wall, Urza was very satisfied when he thought that Luo Zhen was just across the wall from him. Close your eyes and soon fall into dreamland. Even after falling asleep, Urza had a smile on his lips. The next day, Luo Zhen found Mr. Carlo, looked at him sincerely and said, "President, Urza doesn't know magic yet. I hope everyone in the guild can teach Urza." Looking at Luo Zhen with a sincere expression in front of him, Mrs. Carlo fell silent, then raised his head and looked at Luo Zhen and said, "Don't worry, Luo Zhen, I will teach Urza myself." Luo Zhen nodded with gratitude in his eyes. Facing the horse, Carlos bowed slightly, lowered his head and said, "Thank you, President." "Ha ha ha, we are a family." Ma Carlos laughed loudly, raised his right hand and patted Luo Zhen, who was taller than him. In the following days, Luo Zhen left the guild alone to do commissions. Urza soon awakened to magic under the careful teaching of the horseman Carlo. As in the original book, what Urza awakens is still the magic of dressing up. Ellipsis ellipsis ellipsis. On this day, a white cloud was floating in midair, and a teenager was resting on the cloud with his hands behind his head and his eyes closed. "Master, we are going back to the guild soon." At this time, a human-like face suddenly appeared in Yun Duo under the boy, and he spoke to the boy. The young man opened his eyes, and there was a stream of light in the gray-brown eyes. "Well, speed up." The boy glanced at the outline of the town not far away, yawned and sat up. The speed of the cloud increased, and it turned into a stream of light and rushed towards the town in an instant. After a while, clouds appeared over the town, and Luo Zhen jumped down from the clouds. The white cloud also fell and floated beside Luo Zhen. "Yo, Luo Zhen, you're back." "Luo Zhen, is the commission going well?" "Welcome back, Luo Zhen." The people in Magnolia Town are very warm, and they have become acquainted not long after Luo Zhen came here. Seeing everyone greeted him enthusiastically, Luo Zhen waved to everyone with a smile on his face. Everyone, I'll go back to the guild to deliver the commission, let's talk next time. After bidding farewell to everyone, Luo Zhen strolled down the streets of Magnolia. Soon came to the door of Fairy Tale. Before Luo Zhen could push the door and enter, the guild's door was suddenly knocked open. A wine bottle suddenly hit Luo Zhen's head. Boom. Just when the wine bottle was about to hit Luo Zhen, the white cloud beside him suddenly became pitch black, turning into a dark cloud and floating in front of Luo Zhen. There was a bang, and a bolt of lightning flashed in front of Luo Zhen's eyes. The moment the wine bottle was about to hit Luo Zhen, it was completely shattered by this bolt of lightning. As the explosion sounded, all the noisy people in the guild turned their gazes over. Yo everyone, who threw this wine bottle? Luo Zhen smiled and waved to everyone in the guild. Seeing the gentle smile on Luo Zhen's face, everyone suddenly felt a chill. With a tacit understanding, he stopped and pointed his finger at a black-haired boy not far away. It's Gray. Looking at the scattered people around him, the black-haired boy still hadn't realized what was going on. When did our guild join a pervert? Why don't you wear clothes in broad daylight? The corner of Luo Zhen's mouth twitched, and he looked at the naked man in front of him. Ah! When hearing the word abnormal from Luo Zhen's mouth, the black-haired boy quickly looked towards his body. His face changed, and he quickly grabbed the clothes from the side and put them on. Chapter 12. Who do you call a perverted naked man, bastard? After getting dressed, the black-haired boy came to Luo Zhen with a dark face, and looked up at the boy who was much taller than him, without the slightest fear in his eyes. Yo, is this little devil a newcomer? Seeing the dissatisfied face of the black-haired boy in front of him, Luo Zhen burst out laughing and asked his companions around him. Yeah, right, what about the newcomer who just joined? Luo Zhen, teach this brat a lesson. My name is Gray, I'm not called brat. Gray in front of him was full of dissatisfaction, and shouted at Luo Zhen defiantly. I don't have time to fight with you. Luo Zhen rolled his eyes, pushed the black-haired boy aside with his hand, and walked straight into the guild. Oh, Gray, being ignored. Ha ha ha, if it were me, I wouldn't be able to swallow this breath. Who can stand this? Seeing this scene, the members of the guild frantically added fuel to the fire, provoking Gray. Damn it, bastard, stop. Being ignored by Luo Zhen, Gray was already annoyed. The words of the companions around him kept getting into his ears, which immediately made Gray's face darken. Pointing at Luo Zhen's back and shouting. Hey, brat, I can't pretend that I didn't hear your words. Luo Zhen didn't look back, he stretched out his hand and waved behind him. When Gray was about to catch up, a sinister voice suddenly sounded above Gray's head. Looking up, I saw a black cloud floating above Gray's head. What is this? Gray's expression changed, and he looked curiously at the black cloud above his head. The members of the guild watched with curiosity when they saw that Black Xunduo actually spoke. I am the most loyal servant of my master, Zeus of Thunder. Black's dark cloud descended slowly and landed in front of Gray. Right in front of the dark cloud, a face appeared in everyone's sight. Little ghost, if you apologize for what you said just now, I can still forgive you. Zeus' face was gloomy, his voice was full of fury, and he stared at Gray with the rumbling thunder. Gray felt a little in awe, but still stuck his neck and shouted, who needs to apologize? Bastard. Smelly brat, let me teach you a good lesson. Zeus was furious, and a rumbling thunder resounded through the sky. President, don't you stop them. Luo Zhen leaned lazily on the chair, watched Gray and Zeus play not far away, yawned and said. Ha ha ha, children just like to play around, let them have fun. Ma Karloff laughed loudly, took a sip of wine from the bottle, and watched the scene in front of him with relish. Ice make. Saucer. Gray's right hand turned into a fist and rested on the palm of his left hand. The next moment, a frisbee made of condensed ice crystals appeared beside Gray. The frisbee spun and made a screeching sound. The frisbee rushed out in an instant and swept directly towards Zeus. In an instant, Zeus's body was cut open by the flying disc turned into ice crystals. However, it recovered its form in the blink of an eye and reappeared intact. What happened? Gray's complexion changed, looking at Zeus, who had nothing wrong with him. He secretly thought that something was wrong. Zeus, don't go too far. Luo Zhen waved his hand at Zeus and shouted softly. Good master. Thunder. Zeus' expression was full of anger, and the rumbling thunder echoed in his body. The next moment, a thunderbolt rushed out of Zeus's body, and a loud bang echoed in the guild. Gray couldn't dodge the lightning attack at all, and was directly pierced through. Green smoke was rising all over his body, and he fell straight down with his eyes turned white. Zeus floated in front of Gray, and was stunned when he saw Gray, who was completely unconscious. Turning around, he looked at Luo Zhen, and then at Gray, who fell to the ground and passed out. Why is this kid so irresistible? The farce is over, send Gray down to rest. Karloff put down the bottle and jumped down to Gray's side. After an inspection, Gray only suffered some injuries and was fine. After people took Gray down for a rest, Carlos surrounded Zeus, who was able to speak in front of him. Curiously asked Luo Zhen, Luo Zhen, what's going on? The members of the guild are also very curious about why a cloud can speak. Turning back into a white cloud, Zeus, who slowly floated to Luo Zhen's side, squinted his eyes and swept over everyone one by one. He raised his head proudly and glanced away. Zeus is a homies created by my soul, with the ability to control lightning and fly. Poking the soft body of Zeus aside, Luo Zhen explained to everyone with a smile. After getting along for such a long time, everyone also knows Luo Zhen's magic. Soul magic. But they never thought that soul magic could create life. Suddenly, a voice came from among the crowd. Asked to Luo Zhen, is that the soul of other people can also create life? Luo Zhen nodded and said, yes, but I haven't tried it yet. At this time, Ma Karloff's face suddenly became serious, and he looked at Luo Zhen seriously and said, the magic of creating life is a forbidden technique. Life is great. As magicians, we cannot use magic to break this rule. Quote. Luo Zhen nodded, but did not answer Mrs. Carlos' words. Looking at the silent Luo Zhen, Mrs. Ma Carlo didn't know what he was thinking. Luo Zhen, you are back. At this time, a voice full of surprises suddenly came from the door of the guild. A girl in armor stood at the door of the guild. Yo, Urza. A smile appeared on Luo Zhen's face, and he waved to Urza in armor. Xiaoran came to Luo Zhen. Urza smiled and asked Luo Zhen happily, when did you come back, and when are you going to leave next time? Seeing the anticipation in Urza's eyes, Luo Zhen shrugged and said, you should take a rest during this time. Very good. After receiving Luo Zhen's reply, the surprise in Urza's eyes seemed to overflow. Chapter 13. After reminiscing with Urza, Luo Zhen came to Mr. Carlo, and asked Mr. Carlo curiously. President, before I go out to complete this commission, you said that I have something to tell me after I come back. What do you want to say? Hearing Luo Zhen's question, Ma Karloff glanced at Luo Zhen, then took a sip of his wine and continued. You know S-class mages, right? Luo Zhen nodded. He also knew about those S-level commissioners on the second floor, but Mrs. Carlos' mafia didn't allow them to go to the second floor. In another week, our guild will usher in the annual S-class mage assessment. You are one of the examiners this time. Ma Carlos gave Luo Zhen a thumbs up, and said with a smile, since Fairy Tail was founded, you are the only one who has been able to participate in the S-level wizard assessment within less than a year after joining the guild. Really? Before Luo Zhen could answer, Urza on the side spoke first. Eyes full of surprise, Urza looked at Luo Zhen's eyes. Shendu was filled with admiration. Besides me, are there any other people participating in the assessment this time? Luo Zhen was a little curious. There are quite a few powerful people in the guild. Besides you, there is Lagos's, just the two of you. Carlos Ma sighed, and cast his eyes on his companions who had nothing to do with him. When the members of the guild saw Mrs. Carlo looking over, they all looked away and started chatting with their companions. These bastards have gone too far during the commissioning process and received too many complaints. Ma Karloff snorted coldly, but then said with a smile, but let them complain about the council's complaints, we're Fairy Tail. Oh, President, I love you to death. The members of the guild smiled knowingly, and showed fairy tale gestures to the short figure of the groom Carlo. After saying goodbye to the groom Carlo, Luo Zhen took Urza back home. After making the first commission and earning the first pot of gold, Luo Zhen took Urza and moved out of the guild's dormitory. The house I currently live in is a 3-bedroom, 1 living room rented out, and the house is relatively good. It's not too far from the guild, and the surrounding environment is also very good. Back home, Urza changed his armor into home clothes, wore a knee-length dress, hummed and was busy in the kitchen. Looking at Urza's busy back, Luo Zhen couldn't help but seem to have returned to the small mountain village back then. When Urza was busy, Luo Zhen opened the virtual panel of the system. Unsurprisingly, this last bit of progress was made up after meeting Gray. During these days, Luo Zhen raised the progress to 90% and obtained the sword skills of Bigmom. Although Bigmom's swordsmanship is not very strong, but with the help of the 3 homies, his strength has been raised to another level. Luo Zhen couldn't help but look forward to the last 2 rewards. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining super fertility, is it fusion? As the system's notification sound echoed in Luo Zhen's mind, the expression on Luo Zhen's face froze instantly. The palm of the hand was in midair, and the whole person was stunned. After a while, Luo Zhen came to his senses, his mind full of question marks. What is superfertility? Luo Zhen's face was dark. Looking at a line of small characters on the soft light curtain in front of him, he couldn't laugh or cry. In the original work of One Piece, the fertility of Bigmom is indeed better than 1. But why can this also be a reward for the system? After a long silence, Luo Zhen sighed deeply. He waved his hand like a rotten man and said, "Forget it, let's merge." As the streamer poured into his body, Luo Zhen didn't feel any changes in his body at all. With a sigh of relief, Luo Zhen was afraid that the system's reward would turn him into a woman. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully upgrading the Bigmom template, and getting a chance to draw a template lottery. Do you want to draw a lottery? As Bigmom's template was completed, the system's prompt sound echoed in my ears again. Without the slightest hesitation, Luo Zhen replied in his mind, yes. Luo Zhen's voice fell, and the original turntable appeared in front of Luo Zhen again. It's just that the image of Bigmom on the turntable is grayed out and cannot be selected further. The turntable started to spin, and familiar images flashed across the turntable. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Whitebeard of the 4 Emperors, Edward Newgate template. Ding! Since the host has collected all the Bigmom templates, the Whitebeard template has increased by 10%. Ding! Reward the Whitebeard Constitution, whether to merge. The sound of the system kept echoing in Luo Zhen's mind. Until finally, the sound of the system stopped, and Luo Zhen merged with Whitebeard's constitution without hesitation. As the muscles all over his body continued to expand, Luo Zhen frowned suddenly. After a while, the muscles in his body began to convulse, and Luo Zhen's deeply frown became more and more wrinkled. Fortunately, the spasm didn't last long and stopped soon. Feeling the power continuously bursting out from the body, Luo Zhen was very satisfied. Although Whitebeard's constitution is very strong, it is still not as good as Bigmom's Iron Man and strange power. What Luo Zhen wanted more was Whitebeard's Junjun fruit. The Whitebeard's constitution can't be called a timely gift, it can only be regarded as the icing on the cake. After merging with Whitebeard's constitution, Luo Zhen's physical strength has been raised to another level. Zeus at the side saw Luo Zhen's frowning, floating beside Luo Zhen, and asked Luo Zhen, "Master, what's wrong with you?" Glancing at the worried Zeus beside him, Luo Zhen smiled and waved his hand and said, "I'm fine." As if knowing Luo Zhen's habits, Zeus floated to Luo Zhen's side and let Luo Zhen lean on him. Luo Zhen propped his cheek with his right hand, and fell on Zeus's body. The soft and sticky body made Luo Zhen like to lie on it when he had nothing to do. Time to eat. Not long after, Urza walked out of the kitchen wearing an apron with a bowl of soup in his hand, put it gently on the table, and shouted at Luo Zhen in the living room. Standing up and stretching, Luo Zhen walked to the kitchen and took a deep breath. He gave Urza a thumbs up and said with a smile, "Urza's craftsmanship is still as good as ever." Chapter 14. Urza's craftsmanship is still as good as ever. Being praised by Luo Zhen, Urza's face blushed, she lowered her head and said nothing. The two were sitting at the dining table eating, and Urza pointed to Zeus floating in the midair of the living room not far away and asked, "Does Zeus want to eat?" "What does he want to eat?" Hearing his name, Zeus turned his head to look at Urza and Luo Zhen at the dining table. Grinning, showing a creepy smile. No, Zeus doesn't eat. Looking at the food on the table, Zeus didn't have any desire to eat, so he turned his head and looked out the window. Forget it, don't worry about him. Seeing Zeus looking out the window eagerly, Luo Zhen rolled his eyes. Been with Zeus for a while. Some time ago, Luo Zhen didn't have any difficulty when he went out to do commissions. So Luo Zhen never created homies. When going out to entrust this time, because it was a bit tricky, Luo Zhen created Zeus. Perhaps it is because Luo Zhen's soul is relatively strong, and the created Zeus is also very powerful. It is very different from Zeus in the original book. After eating, Luo Zhen sat on the sofa in the living room, looking at Zeus floating beside him thoughtfully. Now that Zeus has been created, let's simply create the remaining 2 homies in the original book. Just do it and stretch out your right hand. A faint blue floating light emerged in Luo Zhen's palm. Coming to the kitchen, Urza looked suspiciously at Luo Zhen, who walked into the kitchen, and was about to ask something. Seeing Luo Zhen turn on the gas stove on the side, the flames ignited. Luo Zhen stretched out his blue floating palm into the flames. Urza hurriedly opened his mouth to stop him. Wait, Luo Zhen, what are you doing? It's okay, don't worry. Turning his head and showing a gentle smile to Urza, Luo Zhen didn't feel any burning sensation as he stretched his palm into the flames. The floating light dissipated in Luo Zhen's hands, and was absorbed by the flames in an instant. Withdrawing his palm, the flames on the gas stove began to surge. The rising flames made Urza on the side completely unaware of what was going on. The next moment, a voice came from within the flames. Master, please give me a name, I will serve you forever. In the flames, a human-like face suddenly appeared. The flame left the gas stove and slowly floated in front of Luo Zhen, lowering his eyes, and his deep voice echoed in their ears. Then, your name is Prometheus. Luo Zhen didn't bother to name him, so he named him with the name in the original work of One Piece. Thank you, my master. Prometheus will never forget your kindness. The flames were raging, and Prometheus, who lowered his eyes, murmured. Pulling out part of his soul, Luo Zhen felt a little weak in spirit. Zeus in the living room heard names that did not belong to Luo Zhen and Urza, and drifted towards the kitchen curiously. Seeing a guy covered in flames, Zeus suddenly understood something. With a proud expression, he said to Prometheus, Boy, I am your senior. I only obey my master. Prometheus glanced at Zeus, then his eyes fell on Luo Zhen. You bastard. Zeus was furious for a while, but after being glanced at by Luo Zhen, he immediately calmed down. He secretly glared at Prometheus in front of him. Luo Zhen, are you okay? Urza was very curious to see a new life being created. But seeing that Luo Zhen's complexion was a little pale, he felt worried immediately, and asked Luo Zhen quickly. Shaking his head, Luo Zhen said with a smile, I'm fine, don't worry. Although Luo Zhen said so, the worry in Urza's eyes remained. There is also a knife, but Luo Zhen doesn't want the one from Bigmom in the original book. After searching at home for a long time, but did not find a suitable weapon, I gave up this idea for the time being. I plan to wait 2 days to find a blacksmith in Magnolia to forge a weapon of my own. Luo Zhen, there are still a few days until the S-rank wizard assessment, are you nervous? After washing the dishes, Urza sat beside Luo Zhen and asked Luo Zhen curiously. Smiling, Luo Zhen said indifferently, it doesn't matter if you can become an S-level wizard or not. Shrugging his shoulders, thinking of Lagoses, Luo Zhen said indifferently, and this time the participants are only me and Lagoses, so I don't think it's a big problem. Although possessing Thunder Dragon Slayer magic, it can restrain Zeus on the side. But Luo Zhen's own strength is not weak, and it doesn't mean that he can't fight without relying on homies. Only homies, who has defeated Luo Zhen, is eligible to meet Luo Zhen. The next day, Luo Zhen found the blacksmith in the town. Let him forge a long knife according to his own ideas. Knowing Luo Zhen's thoughts, the blacksmith said that it was not difficult at all. 2 days later, Luo Zhen retrieved his long knife. This was forged by Luo Zhen according to the horizontal knife in the memory of his previous life. The blade is straight, and the blade presents a touch of black. Luo Zhen, who returned home, immediately attached his soul to the horizontal knife. After a while, a big ferocious mouth and a pair of eyes suddenly appeared on the knife body. Owner, Heng Dao, who had life, was as light as a feather in Luo Zhen's hands. The moment he opened his eyes, Heng Dao's eyes became extremely respectful. From now on, your name will be Napoleon. Similarly, the name of Heng Dao is still named after the name in the original work. At this point, Luo Zhen's three major homies can be considered complete. Although the same name, the same attributes. But there is a big difference from homies in Bigmom in the original book. No matter in terms of image or strength. Although Leian Zeus usually looks like White Cloud, his face is even more ferocious. The biggest difference is Prometheus. In the original One Piece, Prometheus usually looks like a little sun. But the Prometheus created by Luo Zhen is like a flame monster. The turbulent flames have always been preserved, showing a ferocious face in the flames. As for Napoleon, even the prototype is different, not the same weapon at all. Chapter 15. Soon, the day of the S-level assessment will arrive. On this day, Ma Karloff came to the guild. Looking at the expectant people in the guild, with a smile on his face, he shouted loudly to everyone in the guild, "This year's S-class mage assessment begins now." As the horse Carlo's voice fell, everyone present roared in unison. Luo Zhen D. Cassis, Lajerthis Drayar. Ma Karloff called the names of the two, and Luo Zhen and Lajerthis walked out of the crowd together. Glancing at Luo Zhen provocatively, Lajerthis walked up to the horseman Carlo with high spirits. He said with a serious and proud face, "Old man, I will prove to you that I am the strongest in this guild." While speaking, there were bursts of thunder flashing on his body. Luo Zhen also stepped out of the crowd, beside Luo Zhen. Surrounded by Zeus and Prometheus, a long knife in a sheath is pinned to his waist. Every year in the S-level assessment, you can choose one person to be your companion, and you can also choose one person. His eyes swept over Luo Zhen and Lajerthis. Ma Karloff said seriously. Scanning the crowd, Lajerthis didn't hesitate at all, and directly chose Fried, who also joined the guild not long ago but was very strong. After joining Fairy Tail, Fried admired Lajerthis very much, and even joined Lajerthis' team with two others. It's called Thor, and Fried is the captain. And also one of the men recognized by Lajerthis. After Lagoses made his choice, Luo Zhen chose Urza without any hesitation. Urza hesitated, and said to Luo Zhen, "My strength is still too weak, will it hold you back?" Seeing the hesitant Urza, Luo Zhen said directly, "Your strength is very strong, but you haven't discovered it yet. You will definitely become an S-level mage in the future, and you will be on your own." Seeing Luo Zhen's serious eyes, Urza nodded heavily. "I will not let you down." Firm eyes appeared in Urza's eyes, and at the same time, the seeds of becoming an S-class mage gradually germinated in Urza's heart. "Okay, then let's go to the assessment site." Seeing that the two had chosen their partners, Ma Karloff nodded and walked out of the guild with his hands behind his back. Luo Zhen and Lajerthis followed behind the stable Carlo, and behind them were Urza and Fried respectively. On the train, to a seaside town. He boarded another boat and sailed slowly towards his destination. Because of Dragon Slayer, Lajerthis' face has become very ugly since he was on the road. Fortunately, the journey was not very far, and it didn't take long before they came to a small island. Looking at the small island, Carlos Ma turned around, looked at the two with a serious face and said, "There are 3 roads on this small island, one is a dead end and has no end, and the other 2 roads have 10 branches. Flags, you have to collect these 10 flags and bring them to the finish line, there will be someone waiting for you. Then now, let's go." Carlos waved his hand. Luo Zhen jumped up on the boat, pulled Urza and jumped onto Zeus's back. With a sinister smile on his face, Zeus glanced at the 2 ugly-looking Lagases with disdain. In an instant, it turned into an afterimage and rushed straight to the island. Snort. Looking at the back of Luo Zhen leaving, Lajerthis snorted coldly. Fried beside him gestured with his fingers in the air. The next moment, a pair of wings appeared on the backs of the 2 at the same time. With a shake of their wings, the 2 also galloped towards the island. Luo Zhen, who landed on the island 1 step ahead, looked at the 3 roads in front of him. As soon as the knowledge-colored domineering is opened, it directly covers the entire island. Not long after, Luo Zhen stepped into a cave with Urza. Stepping into the cave, a red flag not far away caught Urza's attention. When Urza was about to step forward to take down the flag, Luo Zhen suddenly stretched out his hand to stop Urza. He glanced at Luo Zhen with some doubts. Urza was about to say something. Luo Zhen waved to Zeus, who was on the side, and Zeus rushed towards the flag excitedly. The moment he entered the range of the flag, countless arrows rained down from the sky, piercing Zeus's body continuously. But soon Zeus's body returned to normal. How do you know? Urza showed surprise on his face, looked at Luo Zhen in disbelief and asked. Luo Zhen spread his hands helplessly, and said with a smile, "How could the president let us pass the assessment so easily?" Hearing Luo Zhen's words, Urza was a little embarrassed, lowered his head and dared not speak. The two continued on, and it didn't take long to collect 7 flags. When he encountered the 8th flag, Zeus was about to pull it out. Suddenly the cave shook. The next moment a huge monster appeared from the ground, and Zeus was startled by its ferocious face. Damn it, guys. The color of his body slowly turned black, and Zeus showed anger, and thunder surged on his body. Go to hell. Following Zeus's roar, an explosion echoed in the cave. After the thunder, the monster was instantly smashed into ashes. Seeing that the monster completely lost its vitality, Zeus was still a little bit puzzled. Okay, let's go. Looking helplessly at Zeus, who kept summoning thunderbolts to attack the corpse of the monster, Luo Zhen pulled his body and walked towards the depths of the cave. As expected, the next flag was again guarded by a monster. But this time, Zeus was not given a chance to play. The figure of Prometheus, who looked like a demon from hell, rushed forward, and the raging flames completely engulfed the monster. Accompanied by the screams of the monster, after the flames dissipated, there were only ashes all over the ground. Only the last flag was missing, and the two continued to move forward. After a while, they came to a huge cave. Not far from the cave, a red flag is planted there. Urza glanced around vigilantly, but didn't seem to see any monsters. I'm going to get the flag. Urza, who had never had a chance to express himself, saw that the surroundings were very quiet, and proposed to Luo Zhen, who was beside him. Shaking his head, Luo Zhen didn't answer Urza's words. He shouted to a dark corner not far away, "Come out, if you don't come out, we have to leave." Urza was startled, and quickly looked towards the corner. Ah, the current rookies are all so strong. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.